Democracy never is easy, as we just demonstrated. The cause is worth giving our all, for democracy makes all things possible.
Look at this. Somebody come look at this.
Let me begin with the core principles. Democracy means rule of the people, not rule of monarchs, not rule of the money, not rule of the mighty. Regardless of party, that means respecting free and fair elections.
Oh, really?
Accepting the outcome, win or lose. It means you can't love your country only when you win. Democracy means rejecting and repudiating political violence. Regardless of party, such violence is never, never, never acceptable in America. It's undemocratic, and it must never be normalized to advance political power. And democracy means respecting the institutions that govern a free society. That means adhering to the timeless words in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident. A mission statement embodied in our Constitution, our system of separation of powers and checks and balances. Our Constitution, the bulwark to prevent the abuse of power, to ensure we, the people, move forward together under the law, rather than believing the only way is one way or no way at all. But our institutions and our democracy are not just of government. The institutions of democracy depend on the Constitution and our character, and the habits of our hearts and our minds.
God have mercy upon us.
Institutions like the McCain Institute and the new McCain Library that will be built at Arizona State University with the funding from the American Rescue Plan, which I signed into law when I came to office. A library that's going to house John's archives, host dialogue and debate, inspire future leaders around the world to serve tens of thousands of underserved Arizonans as a reminder of our obligation to one another. These principles of democracy are essential in a free society, but they have always been embattled. Today, let's be clear. While we've made progress, democracy is still at risk. This is not hyperbole. It's a simple truth. A simple truth. I've made the defense and protection, the preservation of American democracy the central issue of my presidency. From the speech I made at Gettysburg in the inaugural address to the anniversary of June 6th insurrection, January 6th insurrection, to Independence Hall in Philadelphia, to the speech I made at Union Station in Washington. I've spoken about the danger of election denialism, political violence, and the battle for the soul of America. Today in America, to honor an institution devoted to the defense of democracy, named in honor of a true patriot, I'm here to speak about another threat to our democracy that we all too often ignore. The threat to our political institutions, to our Constitution itself, and the very character of our nation. Democracy is maintained by adhering to the Constitution and the march toward perfecting our union by protecting and expanding rights with each successive generation, including that little guy. He's going to talk about it.
Hey, that's pretty good.
And it's okay. In my house, kids prevail, okay? This adherence isn't optional. We can't be situational. We can't be only there when it's good for yourself. It's constant and unyielding, even when it's easy, and most important, when it's hard. For centuries, the American Constitution has been a model for the world, with other countries adopting we the people as their North Star as well. But as we know how damaged our institutions of democracy, the judiciary, the legislature, the executive, have become in the eyes of the American people.
Interesting.
Even the world, from attacks within the past few years. I know virtually every major world leader. That's what I did when I was a senator, as vice president, and now. Everywhere I go in the world, I've met now with over 100 heads of state of nations of the world. Everywhere I go, they look and they ask the question, It's going to be okay. Think about this. First meeting I attended of the G7, the 7 wealthiest nations in the world, in Europe, the NATO meeting. I sat down, it was in January, after being elected, late January, early February, and it was in England. And I sat down, I said, America's back. Macron looked at me and said, Mr. President, for how long? For how long? And then, the Chancellor of Germany said, Mr. President, what would you think if you pick up the paper tomorrow, the London Times, and it said 1,000 people broke down the doors of Parliament, marched and killed 2 bobbies in order to overthrow an election of the new Prime Minister? What would you think then? What would America think? What would we think?
Okay, you know what?
The leading nation in the world, having gone through what we went through. And many of you travel internationally. Many of you know people around the world. I'd be surprised if you heard anything different than the concern about, are we okay? Is the democracy going to be sustained? For that institutional damage, we see distrust and division among our own people. I'm here to tell you, we lose these institutions of our government at our own peril. And I've always been clear, democracy is not a partisan issue. It's an American issue. I've come to honor the McCain Institute and Library because they are a home of a proud Republican who put his country first. Our commitment should be no less, because democracy should unite all Americans, regardless of political affiliation. And there's something dangerous happening in America now. There's an extremist movement that does not share the basic beliefs in our democracy. The MAGA movement. Not every Republican, not even a majority of Republicans adhere to the MAGA's extremist ideology. I know because I've been able to work with Republicans my whole career. But there's no question that today's Republican Party is driven and intimidated by MAGA Republican extremists.
What'd you say?
Their extreme agenda have carried out what fundamentally alter the institutions of American democracy as we know it. My friends, they're not hiding their attacks. They're openly promoting them, attacking the free press as the enemy of the people, attacking the rule of law as an impediment, fomenting voter suppression and election subversion. Did you ever think we'd be having debates at your stage of your careers where banning books and burying history? Extremists in Congress more determined to shut down the government, to burn the place down, than to let the people's business be done.
Now I feel better.